This story is part of a series titled Memories of Tehran. Several years ago, when I was visiting with my cousins Ramin and Jessica down in LA, they asked me a question. They wanted to know what had happened to our move to Australia. They were under the impression, as I think most of my uncles and aunts were, that our family would be moving to Australia and not the US. So, needless to say, when it happened, it came as quite a surprise. Welcome to Storytime with Kumars. My name is Kayo Jijina, and this is my story titled The Australia Story. I hope you enjoy it. The wind had begun to blow, whispering, "It was time to go west, young man, go west." Lil Joe and Haas mounted their horses, setting out from the Ponderosa, as Ben Cartwright stood next to Hop Singh and watched. "You boys watching Bonanza again? It's not on your television list. Turn it off and come into the dining room. Dad and I want to talk to you." "Boys, your mom and I have decided to move to Australia." December of 1974 was the year Dad made the announcement. The word move meant it was time to immigrate. I was aware of our application for both Australia and America. The interview process at the US Embassy in Iran stood out in my mind. Marines guarded both the front entrance and the hallways. They were sharply dressed and did not smile. While we were being interviewed by the US ambassador, Mom mentioned his son and I were friends in school at Iran Zamin. I was a little embarrassed, but went along with it. It never occurred to me to ask Dad why he had chosen Australia over America. Dad made most of the decisions, and we were expected to go along. Mom chimed in. "You can pack a few of your valuables to take with you. The rest Dad will bring after he returns by himself." "What about school?" I asked. "And can we take our money box with us?" I remembered our first trip to Australia and the incident with the egg machine. "When we get there, summer vacation will just be starting, and in a month or so, school will start. We will get you boys signed up," said Mom. Not quite what I meant, but I was beginning to see the picture. "Of course you can bring your money boxes with you. In fact, let's open a bank account for you boys, and you can earn interest on your money." Our own bank accounts? Sounded intriguing. Mom had a great idea. "Where will we be staying? And will Dad be working for Noser Uncle?" I had overheard Mom and Dad talking about Noser Uncle helping with our Australian visa by offering Dad a job and a 10% interest in his printing business. Dad was a mechanical engineer by training and worked for Iran Air. Everyone knew he loved to fix things. Things like refrigerators, cars, radios, televisions, kerosene, heaters, alarm clocks, watches, and the list went on. Family thought it was cute that Brother and I were his big helpers, but I did not quite share the same enthusiasm. Dad will be taking care of the equipment for Uncle. And we have good news for you. We are buying Uncle and Auntie's old home, and each of you can pick out your own rooms. I remembered the home. It was a beautiful, two-level, craftsman-style home with a basement and a great yard for running, where we would visit with cousins. Cyrus, Khosrow, Shahnaz, and Putli. I was sold. At school, some of the kids poked fun about moving to Australia, claiming Australians stood on their head, informing me I was at risk of falling off the planet because Australia was located in the southern hemisphere. I had been there before and returned without falling off, so I knew better. The flight to Sydney was a long one, and after arriving, we stayed with Cher Auntie until our house was ready. Auntie worked part-time and we had the run of her house. Akhtar Auntie, who was Noser Uncle's wife, decided to help us feel at home by chauffeuring us around since we did not have a car. Sometimes Dad would borrow Cher Auntie's VW Squareback. One evening, we were invited to dinner at a home of a friend Noser Uncle had grown up with. They were Parsis. Auntie was hoping It would help Dad to feel a little more at ease about going out. Connections like that always had the opposite effect on Dad, who resisted socializing unless he had to. A story was told about his co-workers at Iran Air having a bet, a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label, as to whether or not Dad, or Rostam as he was known at work, would show. The host even offered to pick Mom and Dad up for the party. Finally, Dad gave in and went. It was the first time. So back to the Australia story. After dinner, the adults went and sat outside. I played in the yard. It was a big yard, bordering a hill and some woods. Playing usually involved running and tag. The day had been a warm one, and the cool evening breeze gave us a much welcomed touch of fresh air. The sun had just slipped below the horizon when our host called for us to look up and pointed towards the sky. 4 or 5 bats, the size of a softball, emerged from the forested hills behind us. Their black silhouettes easily visible against the dimly lit sky. This was my first bat sighting, and the perfect end to a wonderful evening. Within minutes, their numbers began to grow at a pace that did not seem possible, swelling until the sky turned black. Hundreds and hundreds of bats emerged from what must have been caves that reached deep into the bowels of the earth. The scene felt like an invasion of alien creatures flying in erratic zigzag combat patterns. Without a doubt, I knew they were planning to attack and take over Australia. I needed a weapon, but what weapon? A flashlight. The inner voice had a way of appearing just when I needed it most. Flashlight? What do you need a flashlight for? That nature program where they shined a spotlight on the bats and it stopped their wings from flapping and they all crashed. That was a bloody cartoon, not a nature program. Things like that don't happen in real life. Sure it does. Dad carries a flashlight in his Pan Am bag just for such an occasion. I have to go inside and get it. Dad never traveled anywhere without his Pan Am bag. It was always by his side. He guarded it with his life. It was where he kept the family passports, official documents, and the dreaded flashlight. You can see for yourself, mate, but I'm telling you, this flashlight thing will not work. Lives were at stake. I ran into the living room where I had last seen Dad's bag. I unzipped it and grabbed the flashlight and made a beeline for the door. I turned it on to inspect the beam. Thank God Dad had put some fresh batteries in it. Like a scene from an old World War II movie, the beam was focused on enemy aircraft as it flew overhead. I shined the light on the bats, but it seemed to make no difference. The bats kept flying. They must have modified their armor to include a repulsion shield. It's not bright enough, otherwise you would have seen. The bats would have stopped flying and crashed. I said, trying to justify the failure of my mission to save Australia. The next day, Cher Auntie was at work, and the doorbell rang. Ach Auntie had stopped by the house unannounced, a spur-of-the-moment type of thing, and Mom answered the door. Hello, hello, anyone want to come to go to their house for swimming? Ach Auntie spoke fluent Persian and Gujarati, but produced a modified accent when it came to her English. Mom asked us if we wanted to go, to gather up our swimming trunks and get ready. Enter Papa-san into the picture, and piece by piece, the Australian honeymoon started to fall apart. A complicated family drama began to unravel into what should have been a simple yes or no question, where a thank you for thinking of our boys and taking them swimming would have sufficed. Instead, Dad refused to let us go. Akhranti left, Mom and Dad got into a fight, and Mom ran off to the bedroom crying. This was not an uncommon scene in our Tehran home, but this was Australia. A day or two later, Dad announced we would be returning to Iran, the whole lot of us, to pack up our belongings and then return to Australia together. I was not happy about the change in plans. Dad was supposed to leave us behind and return by himself. I complained a little, knowing it would not do any good. I was looking forward to the prospect of getting acquainted with my new life in Australia before starting school. After arriving in Tehran, Dad pulled the big one. "We're not moving to Australia." And the cycle with Mom and Dad repeated itself. What about my room in the Linfield house? What about my pocket money I had deposited in the New South Wales bank? It was everything I had.